Guys, we've received a new update, and I gotta say, they have made some crazy changes that really make you question this game and the developers behind it. They buffed the durable damage on a lot of enemies, made things more annoying and tedious to fight, fixing issues in the game when there's money to be made from it, and I will say, they did do some buffs that do increase the enjoyment and experience of the game. I'm not here to just harp on all the negative things that are happening. I'm here to look at this patch all around and take it for what it is: the good, the bad, and the ugly. I don't think I've ever made a video where I really dived into the issues and positive features that come from an update, so I really hope you guys understand my thought process and how I view all of the changes that have happened. Alright, so let's start off with the resolved issues. Defend city events appear super Earth controlled. I don't think this one affects gameplay that much, so I don't really care too much about this, but hey, I guess we'll take it. Destroying the airbase control tower with a portable hell bomb no longer blocks objective progression. I actually didn't know this was a thing, but that sounds pretty huge. If I'm understanding this right, if you used a hell bomb to destroy that objective, it sounds like you would be hardlocked from completing the mission. I've never had this issue because I don't really take the hell bomb, but that does sound super frustrating, so shout out to them for fixing this. The enthusiastic mirth emote sound has been fixed. Laughter is once again permitted on the battlefield. This one I'm kind of 50-50 on because sure, fixing the emote to work properly is obviously a good thing, especially since this one gets used very often. The reason I say 50-50 is because people love to join my stream and spam this, so it gets a little annoying after hearing it 50 times, but hey, that's just a me issue. This next patch solves one of the biggest issues with the Illuminate, and it's that flesh mobs are no longer able to clip through various objects when charging. So no more making a beeline straight towards you, going through buildings, cars, and mountains, just ridiculous stuff. I don't know why it took so long for this change to happen, and I know I sound impatient about this, but this has been a massive problem for such a long time. It shouldn't have been ignored for this long. This next patch further adds to my frustration issues with the stuff that we just mentioned about the flesh mob clipping through everything, and we have restocked the fireworks for the celebration when players have completed the tutorial. Good job, you have earned them. Why does this bother me so much? Because why are we focusing on these things that don't add a better gameplay experience or just overall enjoyment to the game? This is one of those things that could have never been touched and only 1 or 2 people, if even, would have ever noticed. There's so many other various issues, bugs, glitches, and especially balancing issues when it comes to enemies and our own weapons, things that actually affect the Helldivers experience. It just feels like their sights on the game are not where they need to be to maximize the player experience. And I'm not saying they need to implement whole new systems that would take a ton of manpower, resources, money, and time, but simple value changes for tons of enemies and weapons in the game that would actually make a big difference. All right. Rant over, moving on. Next thing is gunships and shriekers are now spawning during operations with the appropriate effects present. So if you have the modifier of patrolling shriekers or gunships, you're actually going to start seeing them now. These are the types of fixes that I'm talking about that truly affect the gameplay experience, and I was also wondering why I never really saw these guys when I would do missions with those modifiers present. Now I know why. The double-edged sickle no longer emits a high-pitched drone when firing. I'm assuming this means a high-pitched sound. I don't really know what else drone could mean other than that, but this doesn't really fix the big problem with this gun. Sure, the sound does get annoying, but that's something that you can deal with no problem. The issues behind it is when you overheat the weapon and it starts emitting this heat buildup or some type of smog from the weapon that makes it insanely hard to see what you're shooting at in first person or third. And the main enemy that you're using the heavy armor pen on when you build up the heat is usually Hulks, and you're trying to hit that small eye it has, but with the lack of visibility, it just becomes unnecessarily hard. They're not fixing the main issues with this gun, and it's, again, frustrating. The next thing is players will no longer be redirected to the Python Commandos Warbond instead of Redacted Regiment, and vice versa when selecting acquisitions in the ship management menu. I don't really see this affecting a whole lot other than making it less annoying when you're going through the Warbonds, but sure, we'll take it. Sparks and bug spawner smoke now have higher material resolution. I think this is going to help out more when you're playing in the megacities against the bugs, because I found when bug breaches would happen behind a building, it's sometimes difficult to actually see the orange smoke that the breach emits, so I'm assuming it's going to make the orange smoke a lot more visible and potent. Balancing changes, here we go. Exosuits rebalance. We agree with the community that the exosuits can take too little damage and break too easily, especially against the automaton faction. Therefore, we have made a bigger balance pass to increase its durability. Increased main health pool from 850 to 1600, almost double, nice. The exosuit will only die if the main health pool is depleted. Before, it could die if specific health zones were depleted. Increased vulnerability to acid attacks by 50%. Fixed so parts of the cockpit health zones are not blocked by the ragdoll actor. Now the cockpit zones will be damaged in the right way. Increased exosuit arms health from 350 to 600. Exosuit arms now also have a 50% explosive damage resistance, just like the main body. Removed constitution and bleed out on the exosuit arms. Exosuits no longer lose all mobility when both legs are broken. Exosuits can now be staggered. They have a stagger strength of 45. Stagger does not affect their ability to shoot. Removed health zones that do not affect the main health and are mainly visual effects. The reason is to improve performance. For example, tow cables and similar items cannot be damaged or destroyed anymore. Now, I have a lot to say about this. The buffs to the mech suits increase in their health pool and explosive damage resistance is an amazing buff and something that has been needed for the longest time. And the thing is, this heavily upsets and bothers me a ton. Not because the changes aren't enough to make them feel stronger and last longer, but the reason they made these changes and why they didn't do this sooner. And I'm not saying, why didn't they make these changes a few days ago or a few weeks ago, but months, and I mean a long time, because this has been one of the biggest problems with mech suits that I guarantee most of the player base can agree on and has vouched for about being a problem. It comes off as very sketchy because this has been a problem for such a long time, but they decide to fix this issue when they're about to sell a war bond that contains 2 mech suits in it? If they fixed this issue a while ago when it first came to be and then decided to sell a war bond with the mech suits in it now, I honestly wouldn't care at all about it. It just comes across as they only fix issues and problems with the game when there's a way for them to make a quick dollar. And these aren't even complicated problems that would take some serious manpower and resources to solve. They're just changing variables. And I can further expand on this by looking at the previous war bonds. The Entrenched Division. The SMG in it had an underbarrel flamethrower and a heavy flamethrower stratagem that would have been cool to use, but nothing too powerful until they also released a patch that made weapons that spew flames out also have a crowd control effect, making them a lot stronger than if they didn't have this buff. Another example, the Redacted Warbond having a silenced assault rifle and marksman rifle. We already had 2 silenced weapons in the game before this from the Halo Warbond, the silenced SMG and pistol, but the silencers had barely any effect on them and literally changed nothing gameplay-wise. Once they released the Redacted Warbond, guess what? They buffed the silencers by making them actually silent and reducing the noise they made by 50%. You can see what I'm saying when it comes off as they only fix issues when they make some money from it instead of just fixing the game. I want you guys to let me know what you think of this in the comment section. If you agree or disagree, honestly, just let me know. I do read them and it would be really appreciated to get everyone's take on this situation. Anyways, let's keep going. Gas effects. Now it also slows enemies with 25% when they are confused by the gas. The slow of course also affects you. Larger enemies like Biotitans and Factory Striders that do not become confused by gas also are therefore not slowed. This one is very weird because I feel like this is something that is implemented to help the sterilizer stand out more and actually be effective. But at the same time, it also makes gas grenades and the gas dog so much more powerful that they don't need it at all. Take the gas dog or gas grenades on a bug mission and see how many kills you get. It is a noticeable amount. Again, we'll take the buff, the sterilizer needs it, but the gas dog and gas grenades definitely don't. I'm not one to say this stuff is overpowered, but these buffs being applied to the gas dog and gas grenades, they honestly might be, well, when it comes to the Terminids at least. Next are some item changes to secondaries and stratagems. The stun baton decreased stamina cost from 5 to 3%, increased damage from 75 to 120, increased durable damage from 38 to 60, so they tackled one of the 2 main issues with the stun baton. The damage, which is nice. The other problem is when you're hitting an enemy with a baton, you don't just stun them, you actually knock them back and stun them. And the problem is the knockback. because you then have to take a few steps forward to swing at them again, rinse and repeat. You don't get to maximize the baton's damage by just completely beating something to a pulp, especially with its really fast swing speed. If they take out the knockback, you don't have to stop swinging, you're killing whatever you're fighting much faster, and you also use them as a wall to block other enemies from getting closer and jumping you while you're having a melee fight. The damage buff is nice, the stamina cost reduction doesn't change much, and there's still another big issue with it, but we tackled half of the problem, so we can call that a win. The other melee weapons like the stun lance, saber, hatchet, and shovel all got their stamina consumption reduced, which again is not going to change much in terms of gameplay wise, and melee weapons still have quite a way to come. I'm just glad they didn't completely forget about them. Moving on to the stratagem changes, the deflation tool increased and moved damage hitbox to make it easier to hit the enemy. Longer window for when the hitbox is active. Armor penetration increases twice as fast, that's pretty cool. Moves slower when it does damage to an enemy. Decreased stamina cost from 10% to 5%. So these changes are 100% going to make the chainsaw feel more enjoyable to use because the hitbox on it was atrocious. You literally had to look either to the left or to the right whenever you would swing this thing for it to connect with an enemy that was standing in front of you. Also, ramping up the armor penetration by double will really be interesting to test out against chargers and hulks. I feel like those were the main enemies that you would use the chainsaw on. So if the kill time gets cut in half because of this change, I think we're going to see more people taking this with them. Another buff is the one true flag having reduced stamina whenever you swing. Again, not going to change much for us. The ballistic shield got its health increased from 600 to 1000 HP. Again, another change that should have happened a long time ago. This was never some OP stratagem that could solo an entire faction or anything like that. Not that many people would even take this with them because of how quickly it would break and how long the cooldown used to be on it. I'll give it to them for reducing the cooldown on it a bunch of updates ago, but finally giving it some more HP will make people more willing to try it out. This next one is a crazy one because it's so simple and the entire community has been asking for this change for over 2 years now. How crazy is that? 2 years for this one change. And they finally increased the Spear rocket launcher's backpack ammo from 3 shots to 4. The biggest problem with the Spear for the most part has been the ammo. Giving it an extra shot is not going to make it replace the recoilless rifle or anything like that. The Spear just becomes a better pick to take with you, and you don't feel like you're hindering yourself now because you decided to take something different than the recoilless rifle to fight off the heavier units in the game. Really glad this got buffed, but it took way too long for such a small change that would benefit the gameplay experience. The Flame Sentry might be a really good pick now too with this patch. They increased the range on it from 20 meters to 34 meters, increased the damage by 50%, and increased how fast it panics enemies. I think they basically slapped the Cremator on the Flame Sentry. That's at least how these stats come across as, and hey, that is fantastic. They have been slowly buffing the Flame Sentry here and there to try and make it a more useful stratagem and not blow up within the first 15 seconds of getting deployed. So all around, fantastic work. I can't wait to test this out for myself. I still think the Flame Sentry will get blown up if it's taking on all the enemies itself, but if you're standing beside it and actually helping it clear enemies, I can fully see this thing surviving a bug breach or waves of Illuminate. Next, the Laser Sentry got its heat capacity increased from 200 to 250, so it's going to last 25% longer. That may sound good, but all they did was slap a band-aid on a wound that needs stitches. The issue with the Laser Sentry isn't it not having enough heat capacity before it blows up. The issue is it blowing up. It will keep shooting non-stop even if it's not able to hit an enemy because it's behind a rock or a branch or something until it self-destructs. They made the Laser Sentry, I don't think these are the exact numbers, but I'm saying this as an example, go from lasting 20 seconds now to 25 seconds. What they need to do to fix the Laser Sentry is giving it heat sinks like how all of the other laser weapons have that overheat and need to be swapped out. If this thing had an extra heat sink it could swap out for, or the Laser Sentry would cool down once it gets too hot, like again, what most people do with laser weapons, I think that would be the fix and change that it needs to make people actually want to take this thing more often. The extra 50 heat capacity is nice, but it's not the fix to the ongoing issue. The Sterilizer might become viable after this patch now. They updated the gas spray visual effects, so I'm assuming it's going to be easier to see just how far the sterilizer can reach, and the gas now lingers for longer and has more range. There's two ways of interpreting this. The sterilizer now has more range when you're firing it and leaves behind a bit of gas when you're not firing it, kind of like a gas grenade. Or the gas status effect now stays on enemies for a bit longer, doing more damage, which would help when it comes to dealing with warriors, hive guards, and overseers. Either way, I'm excited to see how well the sterilizer is going to perform now, especially since gas also slows enemies by 25%. And one of the main issues with the sterilizer was enemies still being able to run up to you and hit you while they were gassed. So slowing them down will give us more space to avoid those potential attacks. Time for the enemy changes, and guys, these are something else. Bile Titan spew explosions are smaller to match the visuals better. They decrease the explosion inner radius from 2.25 to 1 and decrease the outer explosion radius from 3.5 to 2.2. I think this is just going to make it easier to dive out of the way of a Bile Titan when it starts spewing, and you'll most likely not take damage now when you do that. And the visual changes are going to be great. I've had a lot of moments when a Bile Titan was spewing at the ground and I walked either to the left side or the right side of the Titan, and it somehow still got me even though it showed him spewing at the ground in front. Solid changes. With the Hive Guards, you guys are going to lose your mind. They increase the armor on the head and legs from medium armor to heavy, decrease the armor on the body and claws from light to unarmored, and decrease the health body pool from 500 to 375. The only thing this change encourages is making people want to pick explosive weapons like the crossbow, eruptor, scorcher, and purifier to deal with them, since medium pen weapons can't even do anything. This is one of the worst changes I have ever seen because it encourages the player base to only take a handful of weapons that can actually deal with very common enemies that will now have heavy armor. If you've ever taken a light armor pen weapon, the bugs that are usually left at the end of a bug breach are hive guards because you didn't have medium pen or explosives. Now, even if you have medium pen weapons, you're still going to see an army of hive guards. It's not that they're going to be such a challenge to overcome and really increase the difficulty and make the game feel hard. It's just going to make it feel tedious because you now have to play Ring Around the Rosie with hive guards to get behind them and kill them. They're not fast, so you can easily run away from them, but the game isn't a running simulator. You're expected to fight everything that gets thrown at you and have all-out battles that feel intense and just chaotic. All this does is take the core feeling that this game is about away from the player, and it makes no sense at all. This is a change that would be made by someone that doesn't play this game or understand what it's all about. And the next group of patches further prove this point. They increase the durable damage that Bile Spewers, Stalkers, Prowlers, Shriekers, Scavengers, Hunters, all warrior variants, Chargers, Hive Lords, Dragon Roaches, Impalers, Raiders, Berserkers, Devastators, just a bunch of enemies and more. In short, they're going to be able to blow up turrets, emplacements, and vehicles even faster now. If you thought the tank was made out of cardboard before, it is now going to be the equivalent to the plastic they use at dollar stores for the toys they sell. I don't think there's one person that plays this game that has ever thought, hey, you know what we need? Vehicles and turrets to blow up even faster. This change makes zero sense, and it feels like the devs are trying to punish you for using the stuff in the game, and it's heavily pushing the idea of use these few stratagems to get through a mission or try using something else and not have a good time trying so. You'd think they would push for more diversity when it comes to using more and different stratagems to make players play the game longer and make more money from it, but it feels like the complete opposite. Don't worry though, we do have a few good changes that are nice to see. Heavy Devastator shields can now be destroyed, they have heavy armor, 800 health, and I believe the 0.7 durable is 70% durable. More weapons like the HMG, the AMR, the railgun are going to feel better now because instead of hitting the shield and seeing the deflection marker going off and feeling like you did nothing, you still get a little bit of a reward damaging the shield in hopes to break that off even when you miss. Sure, it's going to be pretty tanky, but I still think this is a great change that's going to make fighting them more satisfying. War Striders got their leg hip joints armor decreased from heavy down to medium, so now they actually have a medium armor weak point that you can take them down from. No idea why this took so long. For over the past month, people have been complaining about War Striders not having a proper weak spot for medium weapons, and we finally got it. Again, taking way too long for a change that will benefit the game's community by quite a bit. Tanks got what I think is a really good buff for them and also a really bad nerf. They increased the health pool from 3,000 to 4,000, increased the health on the back vents from 750 to 1,500, increased the armor on the back vents from medium to heavy, remove Track's damage zone when zone is dead, remove damage cap to carry through from tracks to main health, reduce the durable resistance on the tracks from 1.0 to 0.7, and reduce the overlap damage zones when it's driving to match the visuals better and do less damage. So the change I really liked in this, I know you guys are going to fight me in the comment section about this, is increasing the tank's health from 3,000 to 4,000. Tanks have never been threatening at all. You simply shoot them once with a recoilless rifle and they're dead. They're already slow, don't have a fast fire rate, except for the machine guns on those, but they only hit you when you're up close and you don't even see them that often either. Tanks are supposed to have this menacing presence on the battlefield, whether it's our own tank, the Bastion, or the Automaton's Annihilator tank or Shredder. They're now just going to take 2 recoilless rifle shots to take down, so you actually get more time to engage with this enemy rather than simply blowing it up before it even does anything. And the spear now outshines the recoilless rifle because it can one-shot the tank given it does more damage than the recoilless. I'm pretty sure the spear does 4,000 damage, so yeah, it's going to do enough to take it out, or a little bit more than 4,000. Now, the really silly thing about this is why take away that medium armor vent that would reward you for being able to get around the tank and flank it from behind? Not only did they increase the armor rating, but also the health pool too. Again, you're not adding variety of ways to take out enemies. You're limiting the player's options for what gear they can bring with them to take out said enemy. And believe it or not, killing the same enemy in the exact same way over 100 times kind of makes you not want to play the game again. No? Stop removing creative ways for people to take down enemies. The only thing this brings is a decrease in player count because people get bored of doing the exact same thing over and over again, especially when they could have plenty of other options to mess around with. And this is coming from a player with over 2,000 hours in the game. They also nerfed the Shredder tank's turn speed. I don't think it really needed a nerf because, again, tanks are not that threatening in this game, and not that many people even die to this because of how close you have to be for it to actually hit you. This is not going to heavily impact gameplay, but it's just a weird change to have. The last important patch note is them nerfing Tesla towers by needing 20 destruction strength instead of 30 to break them, and also adding a health function with 200 health and an armor rating of 2. It seems like we'll be able to destroy these with regular weapons now. I'm all for that, giving us, again, a bit more build diversity. And I only say a bit is because I've never heard anyone say, oh, I gotta make sure I bring this piece of gear for the Tesla towers. It's a great change that I think will benefit the gameplay experience quite a bit if you're able to blow it up with non-explosive weapons. The rest of the patch notes are more smaller bug fixes that I'm not gonna get into because they're not gonna heavily change the gameplay experience. But anyways, if you guys enjoyed the video, drop a like and subscribe. Really helps the channel out. And let me know in the comments section if you agree or disagree with the things I've mentioned. But anyways, see you guys.